That's one thing that I am proud of our young people. Thank you, Nate. Something that we stress with our children. My son-in-law told me today, his pastor, just out of the clear blue, and he doesn't do this, called him up. He's been listening to Stephanie's CD, and he said, and he doesn't throw compliments like this out loosely. He said, that's the best CD I've ever heard. But here's what he said. He said it's Spirit-filled. There are a lot of groups, there are a lot of singers who sing mechanically correct. They're perfect pitch. They're technically masters. But there's a total difference when you sing for Jesus. And we have that here. And I'm thankful for that. I want you to open your Bibles. It's a very sobering message tonight. It's not going to be a wild, screaming message, but it's one that I think will be able to help all of us. You know, we all complain. We do, okay? Every single one of us every day there's not a day that goes by that at least once or twice or several times throughout the day we have something to complain about. And if we forget what to complain about, there's always somebody that we know to remind us to complain. Complaining is a way of life for humanity. The sad thing is it's been throughout the history of mankind, and it's been throughout the history of the children of Israel, and it's been the history of God's people in the church. It's just human nature. But it is something that displeases God. It's high on His list of sins that He judges. So I want you to listen very carefully tonight, because this story did not involve just a few. It involved all the people. And there is a consequence for complaining. And we're going to look into it tonight. So first of all, we're going to go to chapter 11 in Numbers. And I'm going to ask the question tonight as a matter of introduction, what happens when we complain? What happens when we complain? I mean, what's the big deal? I mean, after all, if we didn't have anything to complain about, what would we do, Pastor? Well, there's a whole lot better things we could do with our life than mumble, murmur, complain, gripe, bellyache, whatever word you want to use. Okay? Complaining is the epitome of being ungrateful. Complaining is in many different forms. And so tonight, what happens when we complain? Well, first of all, I want you to look in verses 1 to 3. The worst thing that we could ever do in complaining is first we displease God. And folks, if you don't get anything tonight about this thought, the consequences of complaining, get this. We displease God. Parents, now let me give you an illustration. Let's say when your kids they're married, they have kids, and all of a sudden, out of the clear blue one day, they come to you and they say, you know, Mom and Dad, I really appreciated what you did for me, but whenever you start to use that word, but, hold on to your horses, because you're going to get an earful. But, you know, that bed that you made me sleep in all those years, it just really wasn't that soft, or it really wasn't that firm, or whatever the persuasion of that child, it really wasn't really what I thought it ought to be, and I just, it life could have been a whole lot better. And you know, those meals, Mom, I know you spent a lot of time making those meals, but most of what you made, I just really didn't appreciate. I just didn't like it. Now, this is like 20, 30 years later after they're out of your house, and so they're venting. One time, one of my sisters, we were sitting around the table at Christmas, and I had my kids at the table. And Linda will not forget this. And one of them started chiming in, and just, it was bizarre. It was just like, where did this come from? One of my sisters began to vent on my mom and on my dad, and predominantly my dad, about how they were raised. And I was in the same house. I ate the same food. I slept in the same house, and I knew the same parents. But what came out of her mouth was wicked. And I sat there for a few minutes, not long, and listened to her vent, and I stopped it right there, and I said, hold it. I said, I'm done with this. I said, I don't know what planet that you're from and where you've lived, but you're never going to do this in front of my mom and my dad and my wife and my kids. We're done. We packed up and we left. And my sisters looked at me like, whoa, because one sister started and then the other chimed in. And the complaining threw my dad for a loop. It's like, what are you talking about? Here's what we do to God. We say, God, you know, you've done a lot for me, but you know, if you could have done this a little different, it would have been a whole lot better. If you could have changed my circumstance, if you could have, and we go off. And God listens. But God's not real pleased. In fact, He's displeased. If you had given and given and given and given and given to your children, and all you come up with at the end of your time underneath your house and your roof was complaining, how would you feel? How would you take that? Now, young people, I want you to listen very carefully to me tonight. Because the sin of complaining is not just to God and doesn't just affect God, it affects every person in our life. So what happens when we complain? We displease God. Look what happened. It says in verse 1, and when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, and the Lord heard it. Now here's the thing. We can grumble behind the scenes with other people, and they probably won't hear it. But God hears it all. He even hears what you don't vocalize. And what we're saying is, God, I don't think you know what you're doing. I don't like the way you're running my life. I think I could do a better job. It's sunny. Oh, it's too hot. Then God cools it off. Oh, it's too cold. I can't wait for the sun. So God brings some rain to cool us. Oh, I can't, if there's one more day of rain, I'm going to hang myself. Isn't that how we are? Every day, it's something. We complain about our boss. We complain about our teachers. We complain about our bank account. We complain about the government. We complain about everything. And, you know, after a while, God gets up to here. And He did with the children of Israel. They complain one too many times. And God says, okay. I'm not happy with what you are doing. And so look in verse 1. It says, the Lord heard it, and His anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burnt among them, and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. That means people died. That's how serious God takes complaining. Verse 2, and the people cried unto the Lord, and when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire was quenched. Thank God for the man of God. Okay? And he called the name of the place Taberah, because the fire of the Lord burnt among them. So first of all, this displeases God. Secondly, it discourages our leaders. It discourages pastors. Pastors can even doubt or question their calling. Hasn't been many times in 35 years, but there have been a few times, especially in my younger years, that I questioned, is this where I should be? Is this the right place? It discourages our parents, young people. If you're never satisfied with what they provide, what they do, it's going to discourage them. It discourages those who teach you. Discourages your Sunday school teachers. Discourages your teachers at school. Discourages your boss at work. And here's what happens. Ultimately, they're driven to the point where they throw up their hands and say, well, what's the use? Husband says to the wife, I can't do anything right. I'm out of here. Wife says, you know what? You don't like my cooking. You don't like my kissing. You don't like anything. So I'm done. And people just dissolve it. 20, 30 years. Here's what happens. People don't understand the consequences of their actions. They don't understand what they say has great impact. Words encourage or hurt. Look at Moses in verses 10 to 15. And we looked at verses 1 to 3. What happens when we complain? We displease God. Secondly, we discourage our leaders. Verse 10 to 15 is both kind of sublime, a little humorous, but sad, really. Verse 10, then Moses heard the people weep throughout their families, every man in the door of his tent. And the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly. Moses also was displeased. And Moses said unto the Lord, wherefore hast thou afflicted thy servant? And this is what's humorous. Listen to what he's saying. Wherefore hast thou afflicted thy servant, and wherefore have I not found favor in thy sight, that thou layest the burden of all this people upon me? I didn't choose this. You did at the burning bush. You're the one that sent me to Egypt to these people, and gave me this responsibility. I didn't ask for this. That's what Moses is saying to God. Verse 11. On verse 12. Have I conceived all this people? Have I begotten them, that thou shouldest say unto me, carry them in thy bosom, as a nursing father bearing the sucking child unto the land which thou swarest unto their fathers? Whence should I have flesh to give unto all this people? For they weep unto me, give me flesh, saying, give us flesh that we may eat. I am not able to bear all this people alone, because it is too heavy for me. But he's not done. Here's where it's almost over. Verse 15. And if thou deal thus with me, in other words, he's saying, if this is going to continue, if this is what it is going to be moving forward, then he says, kill me. I pray thee out of hand. If I have found favor in thy sight, let me not see my wretchedness. You know, I deal with a lot of suicide being as a chaplain. That's the epitome of discouragement. I know a great pastor. He was the vice president of one of the colleges I went to many years ago. 64 years of age, took a pistol and killed himself, put it in his mouth and shot himself. I don't know what the circumstances was, but I can guarantee you that he was driven to discouragement by someone. I don't know. If I gave his name, some of you would probably recognize it. Great preacher. We discourage our leaders. Think about what you say before you voice it. Think about the impact you're making, young people, on your parents. Hey, they go to work. They've provided a warm bed. They've provided food. They've provided a car. Initially, they probably help you with the insurance. They love you. They take care of you. They do a lot for you. We're past that stage. We're to the point now where now they're responsible and they're taking care of all of that themselves. And you know what? They look now, because they're paying the bill, and we're not paying the bill. They look now and they understand what we did. And I'm thankful that I have children that do appreciate and continue throughout our life to encourage us by thanking us for what we did.